Listeners, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you looked at your practice through your client's eyes? Not through your own, not through your team's, not through the lens of your credentials, your years of experience, or even the quality of the work you know you deliver. I mean, through the eyes of the person trying to find help. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most lawyers, mediators, and dispute resolution professionals are still building their practices based on how they think clients behave. Meanwhile, the client has changed. How they search has changed. How they evaluate trust has changed. How quickly they expect a response has changed. And increasingly, what they expect from the professionals they hire has changed. Today's guest, Colleen Joyce, is the CEO of lawyer.com, which sits right at the intersection of all of that. And because she comes at this not as a lawyer, but as a consumer and a business leader, she brings a perspective that, frankly, I think many professionals desperately need to hear. This is a fascinating conversation about visibility, branding, AI, client expectations, and what the future of practice growth actually looks like. So let's get into it. I spoke too soon because before we dive in, I want to share something exciting with you. As many of you know, one of my goals with the Practice Playbook podcast has always been to make sure that every episode gives you not just ideas, but practical tools you can actually use in your own practice. That's why I've been creating companion resources for the episodes. And now I'm going a step further. Starting with this episode, every Practice Playbook episode will include a free companion resource for all listeners, which is designed to help you immediately apply key insights from the conversation. But for members of my Practice Accelerator, I'm adding something brand new, and that is a premium deep dive implementation resource. Think of it this way. The free resource helps you assess where you are. The Accelerator resource helps you actually build the solution. So for this episode, all listeners can download the Client Journey Quick Audit, which is a practical tool helping you evaluate your practice through your client's eyes. And for Accelerator members, you will get access to the full Client Journey Deep Dive Practice Growth Audit and 30-day action plan, complete with implementation exercises, AI prompts, visibility strategy tools, and a much deeper framework to help you modernize your client experience. If you're not yet a part of the Practice Accelerator, this is exactly the kinds of hands-on implementation support I'm building for members every single month. You'll find links to both in the show notes. And right now, I want you to hear this terrific conversation that I had with Colleen Joyce, the CEO of lawyer.com. Welcome to the Practice Playbook podcast, your go-to resource for legal professionals, mediators, and entrepreneurial experts building modern, profitable, and purpose-driven businesses. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, attorney, mediator, and #1 best-selling author with over 35 years of experience. I'm a former chair of the ABA section of dispute resolution, and I've helped thousands of professionals build practices they love through my books, coaching, and training programs. Each week, I'll bring you real-world strategies, mindset shifts, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you grow with clarity, confidence, and impact. Let's dive in. Welcome back, listeners, to the Practice Playbook podcast, where I help lawyers, mediators, and entrepreneurial professionals build smarter, stronger, and more sustainable practices. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, and today's guest brings a perspective I Honestly, absolutely love. Colleen Joyce is the CEO of lawyer.com, one of the leading platforms helping consumers connect with legal professionals. And she brings something that many in our industry simply do not have enough of: a true consumer lens. Colleen's background is anything but traditional. She came into legal from the media and startup world, and that outsider perspective has given her remarkable insights into branding, growth, consumer behavior, intake, technology, and the rapidly changing expectations professionals need to understand if they want to remain competitive. This is a lively, insightful, and frankly eye-opening conversation. And now we actually are going to dive in. Colleen, I'm so very pleased to have you joining us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is your busy back-to-back schedule.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
This is a conversation I just was telling you I've really been looking forward to, not because I don't love having my fellow colleagues, attorneys, dispute resolution professionals in the seat on the other side of the screen, but I love to get a perspective from someone who has been successful in other industries who then brings that light to what we do in the law and is able to, bring that perspective of what you've learned in the other areas in which you've been successful, and then bring it here to us. So this is going to be a fun conversation. I can tell from how you and I interact, but it's also going to be really impactful and insightful for my listeners. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, and this is the perfect place to start because we were just talking about this, because you just said it. You said, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a consumer.
Totally.
Right? And that is a perspective. Let's start with that, because right there, most colleagues do not look at their practice through the consumer lens, through the client's lens. They look at it through their own lens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes a huge difference, right?
It really does. I think that's what definitely gives us the advantage, is that when we started lawyer.com, it kind of organically grew. And while I've been fortunate enough to only need a lawyer every so often, right?
Yay.
Right? That's a win. I've talked to thousands of consumers, right? And I'm a consumer. I'm the best consumer because I will buy everything. I'll be influenced by everything. But it also allows me to understand, how can we better tailor our services? How can we actually help people find lawyers? And that's what we do at our core. It's really difficult to find a lawyer, right? Especially if you're going through a criminal case, a family law case, right? That's not just a one and done, right? I'm not asking for a will. You're going to be with me maybe for 10, 12 years kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to have that lens to understand, because it sets us apart a little different.
Your unique lens is pretty, pretty wide spectrum. You started with popstar.com.
Yep.
Popstar.com, I don't think I have to explain it too much, but I'll let you do that. But you go from popstar.com to lawyer.com, pretty different spaces. You just mentioned, interviewing celebrities, and now you're trying to help place people with lawyers. It's a pretty different perspective.
I was so bummed. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I got to now go work with lawyers? This is going to be terrible. I'm interviewing Oprah. I'm on red carpets. I'm going to the MTV Movie Awards. And now I've got to go talk to a lawyer and tell them how to grow a business? But to my surprise, I was so wrong. And it has been the most challenging and fulfilling opportunity I've had. And I've taken a lot. It sounds silly, right? I've taken a lot of what I learned at Popstar and was able to translate it into buildinglawyer.com. Because a business, at the end of the day, whether you're a law firm, whether you're a marketing company, whether you're an entertainment company, you're still a business, right? You have the same challenges. So I was able to, employment challenges, HR issues, this, that, like, there's a litany of problems when you run a business, right? But they transfer, right? And that's what's most important. That's why it's easy to jump around in industries. Yes, you need the industry knowledge. That's, I think, probably the most important element, but you can learn that. So I think what I learned from kind of starting a business like Popstar, that was like a startup. We knew nothing. We just did it, right?
I'm
Like,
just going to go talk to celebrities.
I'm just going to like find out who's doing this movie. I would send a FedEx package to their home because they would put their home on their website, right? And then I would get in. I'm like, wow, well, that worked. Now I'm going to call and now I'm going to say this and that worked, right? So it really taught you to keep trying, keep doing new ideas and new verticals, which when we came into the legal industry, didn't really have that, right? We came into a very buttoned up, very old. I mean, look at somebody like Martindale. They've been around for 200 plus years, right? This was a very set in stone industry that I would say in the last 10 years has completely changed in terms of things have been shaking up left, right, and center. And then when AI came in, well,
Yeah. My
it's
listeners know AI
game
is my
over.
jam. So
Yeah.
it's I've been all in since day one and using it properly.
Yeah,
But
right.
so I love the perspective that you were just sharing because it's what we talk about a lot with my listening audience is that you cannot find a more risk averse group of people than lawyers, right? We go
True.
to law school for 3 years with risk aversion, risk aversion, risk aversion drilled into our brains.
Right.
And so then we put them out there in the world and somehow expect them to operate in trying new things
True.
with risk, right? They're not particularly good at it.
Right.
But I really think it's interesting that you've seen a shift in perspective in the past
Yes.
10 years. Do you think I sort of see it as the advent of technology and the
Yeah.
advent of the rise of the consumer power
Yep.
in the
100%.
world, right? I've always looked at it as everyone needs a lawyer or they think they need a lawyer when they're getting sued. So lawyers, I think, have always held a bit of an open upper hand in that
Yeah.
dynamic of being hired because they're like, well, you're getting sued, you need me. But not anymore. It's really we've moved into, especially for my dispute resolution professionals,
Yeah.
right? That's an opt-in process. You've got to be hired and not only chosen by one side, you got to get chosen by at least two sides, right? If
Interesting.
not
Right.
more. So what have you seen as the shift?
A couple things. One is that the the law firms that are growing and growing fast are treating their law firms like a business.
Yeah.
They have actually stepped out of the role of practicing day to day. They have hired attorneys, right? They've hired the rainmakers because they were the rainmakers. That's why your name's on the building, right? So they've gone in and they said, "Hey, listen, let me be the innovator. Let me then hire and create structure. Let me bring in a COO," right? If you told me 15 years ago that law firms would have COOs, people would be like, first of all, what's a COO?
Yeah.
And second of all, you're crazy, right?
Yeah.
But now you talk to law firms, and I'm not even talking big law or medium law. I'm saying your law firm down the street, chances are they have a chief marketing officer, they have
Oh,
a
yeah.
chief operating officer, as they should, because they're treating their law firm like a business. And I think to your point, the reason that they do that is because they look around and they see what the consumer wants. And the consumer wants to go to law firms that are well run. Who doesn't, right? Me as a consumer, right? I want to go to a law firm that's going to make me feel like I'm the most important person, right? And
Mhm.
that takes time, that takes system processes. And we as consumers want more and more and more these days. And if you can't give them that, they're just going to go find another law firm.
It starts from the minute they think about hiring you,
Oh,
right? I
yeah,
mean, you know this with that media and the digital world in which you've been so immersed. It starts from the very minute that they start. Well, it used to be Googling for a
yeah,
lawyer. I think it's now chat GPTing for a
totally.
lawyer. I think attorneys are starting to finally see that they need to get in front of that and provide a consumer client positive experience like you just said. It's
Yeah,
not just walking into the fancy lobby
Right.
and going into like your gorgeous office
Right.
behind you. Those are odd for those who can't see the video. She has a gorgeous portrait or mural of Audrey Hepburn behind her as Holly Golightly. I love it. A vast percentage of the time for hiring a lawyer or a mediator
Yeah.
or arbitrator, they're never going to be in that fancy office that you're
No.
paying so much money for. They're rating you on the world you provide them here in this virtual world and how easy you make it for them, right?
It's so true. And I think now more so than ever, brand matters. We lived in a world where you didn't really have to worry about brand because you could just go to Google, you could buy Chicago top blah, blah.
Lawyer.com, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you're buying that keyword and okay, well, you're the first in the results. So that means that you're the best, right? First is the best. So done. Now that's changed completely. And you're seeing a real shift, I think, in the last few years where the leaders in the space have really built brands, not only around their business, but around themselves. And I think that's something that's so important because these brands are now driving conversations on social media, which is where all consumers live. So
Yeah.
they get to be the narrator of what should and shouldn't happen. So that if somebody ever does get in trouble or they need anything, oh, I gotta go check out the pineapple lawyer. I saw her talk somewhere, right? That's exactly it. And that matters.
I am going to have to look up the pineapple
Yeah.
lawyer. I
She's
need to
great,
know
by the
what she
way.
does.
Yeah,
All
she's
right.
fantastic.
Free plug for her
Yeah,
because she's got a brand.
she does.
And, branding is something I actually next week have 2 intensives to go work with lawyer clients to help
Yep.
them develop a brand because let's talk about branding because
Yep.
people, if they've heard one of my, programs on this or whatever, they'll know. But lawyers and dispute resolution professionals tend to think of brand as do I pick dark blue or light blue? Do I
Right.
have a circle with a P or a PRL in it, right?
Right.
What do you mean by brand?
To me, brand is what is your company? Who are you? I am my own brand, right? You're your own brand, and it's who you are in the most authentic form. Then you use, I mean, that's really what's driving the culture. It's driving your company. And that to me is what brand is. Then everything trickles down from there. What
Right.
gets you up every morning, right? What gets you to come into the office? How can you communicate that to the masses to connect with them? And like to me, brand is inclusive of yes, social media, yes, your website, yes, your mark. It's all that. It starts at brand. What is your brand?
100% and hallelujah, right? Most professionals, I think, dip their toe into social media because they hear they're supposed to.
Totally.
Right? They might have just heard you saying that, right? That's where everybody's there, all the consumers are there.
Yeah.
Oh, I better go do it. But let me say, if you don't know what your brand is, then you're wasting your time on any platform. You may even be on the wrong platform. You
Right.
don't want to be on Instagram if your referral partners are on LinkedIn, right? They're not
100%.
scrolling through Instagram. But if you are a B2C, if you are a divorce attorney or mediator like I was, your people are on Instagram, not trolling through LinkedIn to find their attorney.
Right. And your best bet is you go there and you talk about all the people that you've helped.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to scroll and see that and be like, oh, that's Susan. Yeah, she helped that family before. I got to call her. And it's as simple as that. The domain authority is what kind of websites, the power they have. But there's also that brand authority that's equally important now. And I think you nailed it 100%.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes to exactly what you just said there, right? When they see you in that role talking about the people that you've helped
Yeah.
and they hear in what you're saying there, oh, it sounds like she understands my problem because it's similar. And what do they start to do in that moment? They start to trust you.
100%. And I think I personally, we struggled with social media maybe 8 years ago because we deal with consumers all the time. They're coming to us because they need a lawyer. They don't know
Yep.
what to do. They don't know where to go. They come to lawyer.com. And it's not like somebody's going to say, oh my God, lawyer.com, thank you so much. You got me off my DUI. Woohoo, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Because
You guys aren't the end or the end
right.
product.
But even if but the thing is, it's such a your legal issues are so private to you, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to be out there sharing it with the world. Now you can, and people do, obviously, but the vast majority don't because it's a private matter that you don't want to get indexed, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So when you have to find your brand and your voice, it's somewhat challenging because your voice is all these people you help, but you don't want to be putting their stories out there, right? So you've got to find that balance. And I'll say in the beginning, we really struggled with that because that's a hard balance to find.
It's scary for lawyers
Of
and
course.
dispute resolution professionals as well, right? We have those ethical codes about keeping our clients' privacy and
Yeah,
confidentiality. But you're right, there are ways to do it. On my other podcast later this afternoon, I'm interviewing an attorney who has a client who has a divorce book out right now that's
cool.
really big.
Yeah.
And because the lawyers mentioned in the book, we're allowed to talk about it a little bit, but
Okay.
it's a big fine line of we want to walk that line
Right.
appropriately. And so for attorneys and clients, yeah, or attorneys talking about client cases, but there's absolutely ways to do it because what you focus on is not their individual facts. You focus on what the problem was that
Right.
got solved.
And I love that, right? That's how you nail it.
Yeah. People and they can do it, but it's interesting because you tell me what you think. Lawyers and dispute resolution professionals, they have a different perception of where clients come from. And it
Sure.
goes back a little bit to what you're talking about set in stone, right? I think for years it was, God, I remember, I'll date myself. I remember people finding us in the yellow pages.
Sure.
Like our big deal was like how big an ad we were going to buy in the yellow pages. Were we going to get a whole page or a half page? I can't even believe we did that now, right? But there are still a lot of attorneys maybe not thinking about the yellow pages, but they are definitely thinking, oh, it's all from a referrals or it's all word of mouth. And they're not realizing there are these other very big funnels that can be built.
It's so just a funny story. So when we first started, I was up against the yellow pages. So I'd call a lawyer and they'd be like, why the hell should I advertise with you? I'm in the yellow pages. So fun fact, if you can find a yellow page out there, there's actually a way that you could rip it. So for a big grand CLE I was doing, I started the stage and I ripped the yellow page in half.
The whole big book?
The whole thing.
Oh, God.
And me, I have
Yeah.
zero upper body strength. But again, it just shows, right? That was what was. And then came Google, right? And then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if you're not in Google, if you're not on page 1 of Google, you're nothing. Okay, well, you know what? You can rip that in half because that's now changing.
Right. It's changing very, very quickly, too, by
Yeah.
the way. Let's just mention that for a bit because I've heard it called GEO. I've called it
Yep.
AIO. I've
Yeah.
called it AEO. I've talked about it on the show, but it is changing so rapidly over to search engine optimization
It's
is
crazy.
out and AIO is in. Yet most lawyers, again, are not able to get on top of that curve. So I would imagine at
Yeah.
lawyer.com, you are getting on top of that curve.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We do a webinar every 2 weeks about AI, which is, I know, something we've talked about. The head of marketing and I last night were working on it and we're like, this is amazing. This is great. We walk in this morning and ChatGPT launched something that just like totally changed our whole presentation.
Blew the whole thing out of the water,
In
right?
12 hours.
Yeah.
Just erased all of it. So how we handle the AEIOU, whatever we're calling it, right?
EIEIO.
Yeah, exactly. You have to try everything. You've got to be on top of everything. And that is a really hard and stressful thing to do because things are changing rapidly with AI. And the minute you think you have it nailed, done. Okay, ChatGPT just put out agents. We had been building OpenClaw agents for a month, thinking that was like the cat's meow. Now you have this.
No, right. Like what was it? I paid a fortune to get Gamma for a year and then Claude dropped Claude Design last week. Which
Right.
I
And then it's like,
love, but it made that
right,
money a waste of time.
100%. So when you talk SEO, I still think there's value in SEO. There's
For a
still
while.
value. in
Yep.
good content, right? You used to be able to publish crap content and it would get ranked. You could do black hat content. Now you need very, very good content. But what happens tomorrow? Like while we're talking right now, things are already changed.
Quick pause here, because if this conversation about AI and the changing future of practice has your wheels turning, I want to make sure that you know about 2 upcoming live webinars I am going to be doing that are designed specifically to help professionals navigate exactly these challenges. The first is happening next week on May 28th, and it is called AI That Actually Works. I created this program for professionals who know AI matters, but have been hesitant to fully embrace it because of the very real ethical concerns, confidentiality issues, accuracy questions, and uncertainty around how to actually use these tools responsibly in practice. It is not hype. It is a practical approach. You'll walk away with tools, protocols, strategies, and frameworks you can actually use so you can move forward confidently and finally start harnessing AI in a way that works for your practice. And then I'm really excited because on June 9th, I'm taking us further into the future with a brand new program called The New Legal Frontier: AI-Driven Disputes and How to Lead Them. Because here's what many professionals are not yet fully appreciating. AI is not just changing how we work, it is creating entirely new categories of disputes. And those cases are already showing up in our courts, in our clients' businesses, and in everyday life. So the program on June 9th is about helping you understand where this is all headed, what kinds of matters are emerging, and how you can position yourself now to be at the forefront of this rapidly expanding area of practice. If either of those sound relevant to where you're headed, and frankly, they probably are, you can get all the details and register now at susanieguthrie.com/webinars. Just go to my website, go to the show notes. And now let's get back to this really awesome conversation with Colleen. And the one thing I would say, and I would imagine, at lawyer.com, you're doing this as well. There's the downside is how quickly AI is augmenting and getting better and all of that. But the other aspect is we can use AI to help us stay ahead
A
or get up to
100%.
speed. And
Yep.
that is a huge part of my day every day. I get up, grab my phone, and I get like 10 different newsletters that are telling me what's the latest and greatest. And most of them, 8 of the 10 are going to have a lot of the same information in them, but you still want to go through them because God knows something new's out there.
But it goes to the topic of lawyers and consumers, right? We shouldn't be afraid of AI. We need to embrace it with guardrails, right? We need to
Absolutely.
understand AI is not going to replace us
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
It's going, but the consumers and the users and the lawyers who are using AI, that's who you're getting replaced by.
And you
That's
are
you
getting
are.
replaced by
You
them.
already have been replaced, right?
Yeah. You may not know it. You just may see that your revenue's a little down, or that client that you've had for the past 5 years is suddenly crickets. You're not hearing from them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a big, scary black hole, right? Like, where do you even, and again, it's not even a law firm, it's any business. It's
It is.
okay, great. I'm listening to this. You've now scared me into what's next. And what's next is different for everybody. It's not like there's a playbook that says, here's how you should use AI.
So you're cracking me up because my books are called the playbooks. So my series of books is called the Practice Playbooks
Oh my God.
series.
So
So
there you
that's so
go.
funny. And I'm writing the AI for lawyers and dispute resolution professionals playbook right as we speak.
But we need
the
it.
hard part, it's going to be out of date by the time I can get it
know.
to Amazon to print it, and that's been why it's not out yet.
And that's
so
a
funny.
struggle. Well, it's like our webinar. Now I'm
Right?
like,
Yeah. Now you got to go back to the drawing board and
we've
rebuild
got
it.
hundreds of people coming to our webinar tomorrow. And I'm like, what are we going to talk about?
I have a suggestion, and because I wanted to ask you about this, and I bet this is something you're on top of over there. But I think in some ways, the AI conversation for the legal profession has shifted.
Yeah.
I think a lot of lawyers and adjacent professionals are still thinking about, how do I use AI?
Right.
How do we as professionals use AI? And I think the conversation has moved on to, are you on top of how your clients are using AI and how you support them with governance around it, with when things go wrong when they're using it? Because we know that's happening left and right. And for those who are, say, you're an employment attorney, well, we know there are a lot of companies, HRs that are using algorithms to make hiring, firing decisions. Well, what's embedded in these algorithms? Bias. Who's going to figure out to sue that? Lawyers, right? So to me, the conversation has moved on, and I'm encouraging all my clients. In fact, I'm doing a webinar of my own on this in a couple of weeks about, yes, still keep figuring out how you can use it, but you should already be there. Where you need to start thinking is about how your clients are using it and how the world's using it, because that's where it is.
Yeah, I love that.
See, you can get on top of that for your webinar.
Well, you know what? We're going to give Susan a plug tomorrow. I love this. No, but it's true, right? Absolutely.
It is very true. And here's the thing, being, on the consumer side of things, it's very rare where professionals, especially in a sedate field like law, where professionals get to be first to market on something. We hardly ever get to do it. And here's this huge opportunity, because every area of law is going to be affected by AI.
Right. Like, go be the leader.
Go be the guy. Go be the gal.
Go make that your brand.
Oh, I like that, right? The AI forward lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's got to be, right? Everyone's right now searching for, what do I do? What do I say? What am I allowed to do, right? There is not 1, 2, 3 people out there that is like, okay, this is it. Well, there's just so much gray area that I don't think anyone wants to take on that risk, but it's an opportunity for somebody for sure.
Even if you just know enough to be able to talk the talk, which is where most people are. Because here's the thing, there isn't going to be settled law in this area. It's all cases of first impression. Most lawyers run into one of those, maybe 2 in an entire career. Now it's, going to be 1 every day, because the AI is moving that fast. But I love make that your brand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make
Why
that
not?
your brand.
Somebody's got to do it.
Be that guy. But then, it's more than just the brand. And this is the other area I think you're really on top of, especially with lawyer.com being in that position between the professional and the consumer. Visibility.
Yeah.
You can't just be a brand if nobody, you can be the biggest brand in the world. But if nobody knows your brand, if nobody sees your brand, if nobody has any idea who you are, there won't be any clients on your screen
Your
eventually.
mom can't be your number 1 brand fan. Although mine is, so maybe it can.
My mom has no clue. She just like, I don't even understand what you do.
But keep going, honey.
Yeah, exactly. She's my biggest cheerleader, but she's like, I have no concept of what you're doing these days. I reinvent pretty much, as my listeners know, pretty much every week.
But you have to in this industry, right?
It's
if AI is moving, you got to keep up. If something works, great. If it doesn't, pivot, and pivot fast.
And it may work for a little while, and then it may shift, and you need to stay on top of that. But when you talk about visibility and those opportunities for lawyers to be visible, we've talked a little bit about social media, but what other ways do you see for lawyers who say they're first to market? I am the go-to lawyer if you feel that you've been wrongfully terminated because of an AI-led decision.
Yeah, I think that's where thought leadership comes really into play, right? So you use your platform, you use your brand or your bland, I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but thought leadership is so important right now, especially with all of that AI noise out there. Anyone can go and be a keyboard warrior and say, I'm the expert in this, but are you out there? Are you talking? Are you talking to consumers, to other attorneys? Are you on stage? That's where the real value, I think, lives.
Yeah, because it's not just saying you're the expert, it's demonstrating it with real knowledge, with real, I call them the aha moments or golden nuggets that you share, where someone goes, oh my God, I hadn't seen it that way.
And I think a lot of that comes with the community. So I could sit here in my office all day long and think that I have the best damn ideas. But then I go out and I talk to somebody, or I'm on a Zoom call, and I'm like, oh, wait, you're struggling with that. Oh, that makes me connect to X, Y, and Z. That's where I think, right now, obviously brand is so important, but in the community, so is community and partnerships and sharing that information, because we all want to do better for the consumer in our industry. That's why we all chose this path, is because we want to help. Well, the best way to do that is to share all of our knowledge together. Rather have a small piece of a big pie. So
Right.
let's kind of push this to the next phase together.
But that's a hard one with lawyers, right? Who have a tendency to see things as a zero-sum game. I think that's that, we take that negotiation course in law school, and it's all about, you start here and they start here and you try to pull them close, right? And that's not really what we're talking about here. What you just expressed was a rising tide lifts all boats, that abundance mindset of, share what you know and it will come back to you. And that can be hard for lawyers.
Well, here's the challenge. Don't do it and see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? That's what I don't understand. Like, get out there, talk to people, just try. Listen, it's hard. I get the fear of rejection, the trolling, the this, that. Understand that, but lawyers have thick skin. They've seen and gone through way worse than what's out there on TikTok. If they can handle
They
that,
can take it.
they can take a Gen Z.
I always say, if you can go into a courtroom, get excoriated by a judge,
Yeah.
and at the end of it say, "Thank you, Your Honor,"
Yeah.
because that's the only appropriate response. If you can do that,
You can try to build a brand.
you can try and build a brand and get out there and try
Yeah.
these new things. Or, as you pointed out earlier in the episode, for those who truly don't or can't, get help doing those things, because that's what the ground is littered with these days, is people who are there who can help you. You mentioned some of the mid-size and larger firms. They have entire C-suites now that are
100%.
not lawyers, that are
Yep.
people who, it used to be the IT guy was, the
Right.
only non-lawyer in the firm.
Right.
Now you've got an entire suite. And then, I have coming on a fractional CFO, and he does it with law firms, right? Her firm is here in Chicago and she's got a whole team, and she's a fractional CFO for your firm. And she's perfect for mid-size and smaller firms when you don't want to do that. There are fractional marketing
But you
firms.
need that,
You
right?
do.
Like, listen, we treat lawyer.com since day one as a startup. I will do absolutely every job it takes, as big, as little, as small, doesn't matter. That doesn't mean I should. I should focus in the lane where I can add the most amount of value. Listen, I still love taking consumer calls and talking to consumers, but is that the best thing for the business? I
No.
mean, it helps me learn, but big picture, no. Is it best practice for a lawyer to be running their books?
God,
No.
no. I didn't
Right.
even do it very well when I did it. I'll be
Because
honest.
right, it's like,
Not
listen,
my
we're not good at everything. Find what you're good at and then surround yourself with people. And I think that's what these leading law firms, from small to large, have done, which has advanced them.
Well, and I think it's those who have gone out and found trusted help, vetted support. And I know at lawyer.com, you're adding some services. There's Lawyer Line with AI intake. Tell me, because I don't know that people, we just talked about, the fact that a lot of times people are never even going to meet you in person, depending
Right.
on what time. It's all this digital experience. I don't think lawyers always understand how important the intake is.
It's so
It's
important.
everything.
I started the call center on my cell phone because I got sick of lawyers calling me and canceling our service and saying, just like our directory listing, being like, you suck. And I'm like, do I suck? Oh no. Or do you suck? So then I realized, like, hey, listen, answering the phone to me was it was easy. Answer the phone, help somebody. And then I thought, well, we're taking thousands of calls a day for lawyer.com. Why can't I do that for a law firm? And I love our whole kind of journey has been so organic in that sense, because I went to a very trusting friend lawyer and I said, hey, can you forward all of your calls to my cell phone? And for 6 months, thank you for calling the Mark Law Firm. How can I help you? But again, it helped me understand what the need was for law
Right.
firms.
Right.
And that helped
that
us.
is a very trusting friend, by the
It
way.
was. We did good, I hope.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But again, intake is so important. People spend so much money on marketing, on brand, on SEO, on EIO, blah, 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 blah. That's all great. If nobody answers the phone, we do a survey. We cold call law firms and secret shop them. They get an average score of 32%.
Yeah.
Because the law firms that don't answer the phone just drag down that average. And they do. But it makes sense because they have one person answering their phone. Guess what? That person has to go to the bathroom. That person has to go on a
Take
break,
lunch.
take
Yeah.
lunch, which is why AI is great because AI is never tired, never needs lunch,
Yeah.
never
Never goes
needs
to the bathroom.
never needs HR, and it's continually learning. Listen, being on the phone call after call is a very difficult job. I give the team so much credit for being able to handle call after call after call. But then AI comes in. And that's really, I think, 2-3 years ago, I'd say 3 years ago now, kind of changed the game and changed the perspective on intake. The minute that you see United, American Express, CVS start going full AI, it's too late for everybody else.
I mean, that's so true. I was talking to one of my new clients last night, and the night before he had been out to dinner with one of his like firm's biggest clients, like $30 billion under management,
Right.
all kinds of, taking the guy out to dinner, doing that client,
Right.
relations thing. And the client told him they'd gone completely AI with their intake in their offices. The
Yeah.
phones are answered by AI. And then the client turned it on the lawyer and said, what AI are you using? How are you changing your billing because of it? Are you
Yeah.
going to offer subscriptions? I'd really be interested. This is a
Love
guy
that.
who's running this $30 billion,
Isn't that amazing?
PE firm, and he's like, we'd be really interested in a subscription.
Yeah.
And my client, that's when the guy reached out and made an appointment with me.
Yeah.
It's
I love
like,
it though. But
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what the consumer wants.
you're
And
right.
he's not the only one.
Oh, no. He's not the only one,
Right.
but you don't wanna be my client felt that he was, behind the 8 ball, that he had, the thought on the part of the client was, "What do you mean you're not on top of these things?" And so he wants to be on top of them now. So we're doing, like, this speed education, but that's the sort of thing is you need to be thinking of I always tell clients, and I imagine you do this too, look at every single step of your process and look for where the friction points
Yeah.
are, and then make it easier for the person on the other side because they're the only one that matters.
Yeah. 100%. They are truly the only thing that matters.
Because if they have a good experience, they'll come back or they'll bring somebody else back or
Right.
they'll write you one of those nice I don't even know what's gonna happen to Google reviews.
I don't
Right?
know.
Like, we've been living for those
I
things
know. And half
ever.
of them are fake, but whoops, I
Right,
didn't.
oh, did somebody say that? Yeah.
That's your uncle, I think.
Or you signing
Yeah.
up under 15 different email addresses on Gmail, right? Free Gmail accounts.
Yeah.
But people learned how to game that
They
system, which
did. And then Google came back and they're like, hey, those IPs look quite similar. We're
yeah.
rejecting that review. Always,
And we're gonna demote you
yeah, well,
because
that's
you
even
did that,
worse. Right.
right? Now
We,
now you're never gonna make it to the first page
no.
of
Well,
Google,
that's it. Don't
right?
mess with technology is the lesson
Well,
in life.
and
It's
if you
coming.
think Google figured it out, AI is gonna figure you and your little scams out even faster.
Right.
So but there will be the next best thing,
Yeah.
so for people. Well, and speaking of that, like, where are you seeing what trends do you see coming for your clients at lawyer.com? What is it that you're telling them the future holds?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, it's all AI based for sure. It's a scary topic for lawyers because they think, okay, well, now the consumer can get onto any LLMs out there and do research. And I say, yes, they can. However, think of it this way: your clients are getting, for the most part, more information. So, in theory, they're going to come to you as even more qualified clients, right? Everyone hates the tire kickers, the this, the that. What happens if your phone rang only when it was somebody that you could actually help? Isn't that the best way to look at things? Now, I understand people are going to Google things. It's going to give them wrong information. They're going to come into the meeting saying, I know everything. And then the
Yeah.
lawyer has to spend all this time unteaching them everything they learned. I get that there's both sides to that. I choose to look at let's give power to the consumer. Not every consumer who needs a lawyer gets matched with a lawyer. We all understand that. This is now giving the vast majority of those people information, and that's power.
It's a little A to J, right? It's a little access to
100%.
justice for people.
That's how it should be. Now, there's like so many little tangents off of that for sure, but give people information and see what they can do with it. I think that that's so important.
I agree. I actually think I try to encourage people to think about the fact that pro se's and self-represented parties getting basically what we learned in 3 years of law school is all available through AI in a very condensed, right? So they're just getting what we learned for 3 years. They're not getting the 35 years of practice that I've gained from working with clients. So, yes, that's going to help them in a courtroom. They still are missing, there's still a missing piece for the lawyer to actually bring to the table the judgment and expertise we have. But we all work in court systems that are so overwhelmed because of pro se litigants that
100%.
actually, if they're better informed, they might move more quickly through the system, which is going to help everyone.
Well, the question is when is AI coming for the court system?
It's already there.
See, but that's huge. But that's what it needs, right?
Oh, yeah.
No more bottleneck.
But nobody's ready for that. I mean, I think that's the next aspect. It's funny. I just did a program for the court system here in Chicago. They were thinking about, I was coming to do a program talking about how they could use AI in their practice. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll talk about that. But what we're really going to talk about is the fact that the court system is already using it for intake.
Love.
So they already have a system where when someone comes in and files something, they now have a triage where their case immediately gets set down the right path and to the right people. So the bottleneck is not right at the beginning where everyone goes into the same pile and then slowly shifts, right? But for practitioners, what does that mean? That means cases are now suddenly, you're not going to have a 1-year runway to get yourself prepared and up to
that's
speed.
it.
And so what are we going to do as professionals to be ready for that?
Well, hopefully use the amazing AI software that's out there to make you more efficient and effective.
Exactly. And get the basic information from the AI and then apply our judgment.
But then it changes the whole billing element of everything.
Oh, well, now you've touched on the touchy topic for lawyers.
100%. I mean, listen, if I was billed like an attorney, I would be like, whoa, hold up. This is changing everything I ever knew. How do I make the same amount of money? How do I make more money? How can I control what I'm making? I see both sides very clearly. I just think it's coming faster than many lawyers are ready for.
Oh, yeah. No, I told you I'm doing that program about the AI-induced death spiral of the billable hour. And I can tell you, I do programs on this very topic. And you look out in the audience and there they all are going, nope, I'm not giving up. They're holding on to that billable hour.
I know.
But you have to look at the fact that the billable hour only ever worked for lawyers.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
We talked about the consumer at the top of the episode. As a consumer, how do you feel about the billable hour?
I would rather pay you like I'd pay a business company, right? I'd rather say, hey, okay, fine. I'll pay you a reduced hourly rate, but I'll give you a bonus if you can get this done by X or if you can get me X like outcome. Why can't we treat law like that? Now, I get there's, again, a lot of gray area in that, but what do I know that you're doing during those said billable hours? I'd rather just say, hey, here's a flat rate and I'll do it for you. And I don't care how long it takes, when you do it, how you do it, just get it done.
I want value. I want what you can do.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with it in an industry that relies on trust and building trust. And we talked about how you can do that with your brand and with your visibility and your thought leadership. You do the opposite when you bill someone hourly.
Yeah.
You cause them to distrust you, or at least think in the back of their head, did they really take 6 hours?
Yeah.
There's not a client on this planet who hasn't looked at an itemized bill and thought,
right,
I think they're padding this.
Yeah. And again, it's look at accounting, right? I think accounting's a little bit ahead of legal but they have billable hours, right? They're just starting to take on PE money, right? It's all trickling down and things are shifting more so now than ever.
Well, it's going to be. I mean, I should have you back on in 6 months,
Yeah.
and we'll have a talk about where we are then,
We'll
and
be like,
we'll
who
laugh.
were those people? Yeah,
We'll
right?
laugh about the conversation we just had today.
It's
That'll
true.
be fun. And 6 months, I promise. I keep trying to explain to colleagues that the practice of law in 2030, like what a law firm looks like, won't be what they think of a law firm as
Well,
today.
they just had Y incubator, Y
Yep.
Combinator,
Y
right?
Combinator. Yep.
They just put out the 2026 winners. 2025 winners, I don't know whenever they announce it. You know, they all were AI native law firms. That
Yep.
was 2 years ago. It was all intake, AI intake. Well, that's so over now. Forget that. Now the winners, one of the winners was at Case Text, right? He was the
Yeah.
CTO there, started his own an AI native law firm.
They're flourishing. And there are people out there right now who don't know what that is.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what got I'll put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
guys. You can go and
But it's
read
never
the
too late to
definition.
learn.
It never is. And you know, you don't even have to go read the show notes, guys. Go open up Claude
Yeah.
and ask it what it is and how it would be, you know, how it might help in your particular industry or field or practice. I always tell people, get curious.
Yeah, I love that.
Get curious about it. In the world of mediation, one of our best skills in the mediation room is to be curious about what's happening for the actual participants. Get curious. It's our skill.
I love
So
that.
I want to make sure that everyone knows, what do you want to tell us? And what more would you like to tell us about lawyer.com and how you can help those people who are out there at the other end of these microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually host an annual conference every year. This year it's coming in July. We figured Las Vegas, it would be just like only a little bit hot. So, why not? You know? But again, what we like to do is we take that thought leadership, that community position. We bring topics to the stage, like the conversation we're having right now, so that you're not behind. Take all this information you're going to learn at the Lawyer Growth Summit and run. Because if you're not going to, the other 200 people in the room, they will. So that's something we're planning, we're building. This is our third installment, our third year. We're very excited. Bigger, better. It's called the Lawyer Growth Summit. And it's drives conversations. That's what we need to do.
And it's future focused.
100%.
Future focused. And that's where we're at in this industry. The same old is just not where we're going to be.
You got to be future proof.
And what about the webinars you mentioned?
So we do webinars twice a week. I send around on LinkedIn, check it out. I have a newsletter once a week where I kind of talk about what's hot in the industry, what's going on. This week we talked about the Kentucky Derby because that's, very exciting. That's a great way to stay connected and see what we're doing. It's Colleen Joyce on LinkedIn.
Well, I will link to everything in the show notes for you all, guys, as I do always. This was such a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed this, and there's so many golden nuggets for my listeners. Thank you so much, Colleen.
Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate it.
And I meant it. About 6 months from now, we're going to get back together. I'm putting it on my calendar.
I love it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's pull out a few golden nuggets from that fantastic conversation with Colleen Joyce, because there was a lot to unpack there. First, and perhaps most importantly, listeners, the client has changed. And I know that sounds simple, but honestly, it is profound. How clients search for help has changed. How they evaluate trust has changed. How quickly they expect responses has changed. And increasingly, what they expect from the professionals they hire has changed as well. If your practice is still built around assumptions from 5 or 10 years ago, this episode was your wake-up call. Second, visibility matters, and not in the way that vanity metrics kind of lead you to believe, in the business development kind of way. Because if clients, referral partners, or decision makers cannot find you, they cannot choose you. That is particularly important for my mediators, arbitrators, and dispute resolution professionals listening, because many of you are one step removed from the initial client decision, which makes strategic visibility even more important. Third, your intake process may be costing you far more business than you realize. This was such a powerful reminder. You can spend all the money in the world on marketing, branding, SEO, AI optimization, whatever the latest acronym may be. But if the experience of reaching you is clunky, slow, or frustrating, you are losing opportunities. And finally, AI is not changing just how we work. It is changing what our clients expect. That is the shift I really want you to think about, because your clients are using these tools. Your referral partners are using these tools, and your competitors are using these tools. So the question is not whether AI is changing practice. It already is. The question is whether you are adapting with it. And because I want to help you move from insight into action, we've created that free downloadable companion resource for this episode, a client journey quick audit. It's a practical tool to help you evaluate your practice through your client's eyes and identify where you may have friction points, missed opportunities, or areas ready for improvement. You will find the resource in the link in the show notes. Now, let's head into the close. Thanks so much for listening to the Practice Playbook podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you'd take a moment to leave a review, follow the show, or share it with a colleague who's ready to build the practice of their dreams. If you want more support and tools like the ones you heard today, join the waitlist for the Practice Accelerator, my brand new subscription program packed with resources to help you grow smarter. You can find the link in the show notes or visit susaneguthrie.com to learn more. Until next time, stay focused, stay intentional, and remember, success starts with the right playbook.